Hello and welcome everyone to our special focus 100-pounder meeting of OA. Today is Wednesday, the 2nd of October, and our speaker is Harry L. Harry originally hails from New Orleans, but now lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. He first came to OA around 20 years ago, relapsed after 3 years, and was in relapse for 15 years. But Harry came back 3 years ago, and today is going to tell us his story. So Harry, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm Harry. I'm a compulsive overeater, 100-pounder, relapse survivor. Um, yeah, I have been a compulsive eater all my life. Just to sort of put some stats at the top, my top weight was 462 pounds. Um, and I've been abstinent back to back this time for about a year and three and a half months. I'm coming up on 4 months on October 6th. And I have lost 223 pounds so far. So my top weight was 462, which is 210 kilos or 33 stone. And my current weight is 239, which means I've lost 223 pounds or 101 kilos. I don't know what it is in stone. I didn't work that out. I'll show you some pictures. Let me share my screen here. Here is me at my top weight of 462 pounds. And then here is me today. I took this picture yesterday. None of my clothes fit at this point because I've lost so much weight. And so I'm waiting until Black Friday to buy some new clothes. But, So when I was a little kid, I was 5 years old, my baby sister had a health crisis. And it was chronic, and it really broke my mom. And she became incapable of expressing love through anything except food. I had four sisters, so there were five of us kids. And mom made dinner every night. She was a homemaker, and there was enough for everybody to have one plate, but not enough for everybody to have two. And so I would race through it so to make sure I would be the one who got the seconds, right? Because I needed that to feel loved. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. My father was an alcoholic. My mom was a compulsive overeater. And in high school, I went to an all-boys Catholic military high school, which there were no girls there. Didn't really date at all. When I look back on pictures of myself when I was younger, I was not that fat, but I thought I was. I felt fat, and didn't really do any dating in high school at all. Didn't really start dating until my 20s. When I got out of high school, actually before when I was in high school and into the college years, and then for years after that, I was a drug user. I used all kinds of drugs, and we're talking like, meth, cocaine, acid, PCP, lots of weed, of course. You name it, I did pretty much everything except heroin. And here's what a compulsive overeater I was. When I was doing crystal meth, which is a speed, I was still compulsively overeating, even when I was high on crystal meth. That's how deeply entrenched the disease is for me. I tried all kinds of diets over the years, and I could white knuckle it through anything for 6 months, right? And so I did Optifast, I did Weight Watchers, I did the AIDS candies. For those of you who remember that, they were appetite suppressants. They were basically just like, candy flavored stimulants, and I would just binge on them. I did the Atkins diet. You name it. I've tried every imaginable kind of diet, and I did lots of therapy. In fact, I'm a mental health professional at this point, and the therapy did not make a dent in the eating at all whatsoever. I went to one therapist who specialized in eating disorders, and she tried to get me to do intuitive eating. Oh my God, what a colossal failure that was! Because for me, intuitive eating is just to eat nonstop and to just keep eating and never stop eating. And so that was completely counterproductive for me. Um, so in the early 2000s, I decided to go back to graduate school and change careers. Before that, I was a computer professional, and I decided I wanted to do something where I would give back to the community. And so I became an expressive arts therapist, a mental health professional. And while I was in grad school, I decided I was going to go to OA and lose some weight, right? And I was basically doing the Atkins diet, right? No sugar, no carbs, but I was eating enormous quantities. I would go to a burger place and order a 1 pound hamburger with no bun, and I thought that was abstinent, right? And because I was living in the Bay Area, I was taking public transit and then walking everywhere, right? So I was walking at least an hour a day and eating a low carb diet. And so even though I was still binging, I was losing weight like crazy. I lost, like almost 200 pounds, got down to about 300 pounds. And I thought that was abstinent, right? I went to meetings and made lots of friends in program, but I didn't really work the steps. I mean, I got through step 5, right? And I had a really negative experience doing my step 5. I shared it with somebody and they reacted poorly to some of the things I revealed to them and ostracized me afterwards. And it was very unhelpful for me. And so I was scared of doing more steps. I was particularly terrified of doing steps 8 and 9, where you make amends, where you clean up the mess that you've made in your life. I didn't think I could do that because I didn't think I could be forgiven for the things I had done, because I'd done some terrible things. I was a criminal for many years. I harmed a lot of people, and I didn't want to face it, didn't want to deal with it. But I was losing weight, and so I thought I had it figured out. Graduated from grad school, came back to the Twin Cities, and was still sort of kind of attending meetings, but they became less and less frequent. Didn't really work the tools at all, never made phone calls, never read literature. I thought I had it figured out. I was just self-will run riot, right? And because I was losing weight, I thought I was in abstinence, but I wasn't. And, sure enough, eventually that failed, and I just went back into the food and, ate compulsively for another 15 years, regained all the weight I had lost, plus bonuses, got to my top weight. And I had a heart attack. And I had arthritis in both knees to the point where I needed 2 knee replacements. I just had my second knee replaced last week. So it took a tremendous physical toll, but it wasn't just a physical toll that it took on my body. It took an emotional and relational toll. I never really allowed myself to love. I never really had long-term relationships. I dated a few women, but, never lasted. And I never really deep down believed that I could be loved, right? And my friendships were based around shared interests and things we were doing together. My one closest friend, we went to high school together. I was best man at his wedding. And he told me at one point that he couldn't take being my friend anymore because it was breaking his heart to watch me destroy myself with food. His sister was also a compulsive overeater, and she died from complications from this disease. And he could not watch me kill myself. And he broke off our friendship. And it infuriated me. I was so mad at him. I was angry. And eventually it sort of sunk in that he was right, that I was destroying myself. And it hit me what this disease had done to me, how much it had destroyed my life. And this was about 3 years ago. And so I came back to the rooms, discovered this meeting. This meeting was so crucial to my recovery early on. I learned that I wasn't the only one. I got a sponsor. I started really working the steps, and of course I started losing weight. My sponsor then relapsed and I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. And so I came to a meeting here one Wednesday, and there was a speaker at this meeting, and he had what I wanted. And so I reached out to him and said, "Can you be my sponsor?" And he said he would be my sponsor. And he said he was part of a group of 100-pounder men who work a method of food sobriety. And was I willing to give that a try? And I said yes. And I went to their meeting. And it's very similar to OA How, although it's not OA How. Um, and I the expect first of all, the basis of it is I'm fired from food, right? I have learned the hard way that I cannot be trusted making any decisions around food whatsoever because I'm crazy, right? I have this disease and I'm never going to get rid of it, and all my decisions are automatically suspect. And so I came up with a food plan. I listed all my binge foods and all my binge behaviors, right? And they're the usual suspects, right? They're sweets and carbs and all you can eat buffets. Oh my God, I was the king of the all you can eat buffet. I'm sure the restaurateurs hated me whenever they came in because I would just break the bank. And I started working with a nutritionist to figure out what I could and could not eat. Between my nutritionist and my sponsor, we came up with a food plan that worked for me. And every morning, I commit what I'm going to eat every meal, right? I weigh and measure everything, almost everything. I don't weigh and measure condiments, but pretty much everything I weigh and measure. And if I need to make a change, like say, for instance, I thought I had X in the fridge and I don't, then I have to call my sponsor. And if I can't reach my sponsor, I have to call somebody else with more abstinence than me and say, hey, I need to make this change. Is this okay? Because I am not allowed to make any food decisions. And if you had described this to me when I first got to program, I would have said, you're crazy. This is impossible. This sounds like hell. It sounds like prison. I can never do that. Weigh and measure. Are you nuts? But in practice, I have found that there is tremendous freedom in this approach for me. I don't ever have to worry about the crazy noise in between my ears saying, eat this, it's okay to eat that, because it's not my decision anymore. I just do what I'm told, and that is the path for freedom for me. I've worked all 12 steps. I'm just going to go through them one at a time. The first step was absolutely the hardest step for me. We admitted we were powerless over food, that our lives had become unmanageable. It seems easy, right? Oh, sure, I'm powerless over food. Yeah, okay, otherwise I wouldn't be here. I really wish I was skinny. I wish I didn't have to, be so fat. I wish I didn't have all these problems, right? I don't want to deal with the consequences, but really admitting to myself that my food decision maker is fundamentally broken, that I can never make sensible decisions about food, is humiliating. I'm really smart. I'm one of the smartest people around, and I've read all the literature. I know tons about nutrition. Of course I can figure this out. I've got this, right? But me following my super smart brain got me to 462 pounds, right? And, heart attack, destroyed knees, destroyed relationships. And so when I really face what it's like when I make the decisions, I have to acknowledge that I'm powerless over food. I can't make food decisions that are sensible. I literally can't, and it's like, it's a daily wrestling match with me, because I have a big ego. And every morning I have to sort of turn my will over to God. I have to recognize I'm screwed still to this day, and always will be. And that brings me to the second step, which is come to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. And the first three words are interesting in that step. Came to believe. It's not like I realized this or decided it, right? I mean, I had to be dragged kicking and screaming into faith, right? I had to be dragged kicking and screaming into, I mean, I've always believed in God. I just never believed that God gave a damn about me, you know? I believed that my unlovability was way stronger than God's love. And it took a long time, and seeing the miracles of the program so that I began to actually recognize that when I did surrender, when I take the actions that I take, and I'm going to talk about the tools later on, but when I did the things my sponsor told me to do, when I worked the program, my life reaped all kinds of rewards, not just weight loss, but friendships and improved creativity. I'm making better music now. I love myself more. I am at peace with myself. It's it took me being dragged to this. It wasn't something I did. It's something that happened to me. You know, and when I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, um, I'm not just talking about like some bearded guy in the clouds with thunderbolts in one hand, right? This fellowship is a power greater than myself, right? That having a sponsor, having a nutritionist, having people I call, having friends in program, having meetings to go to, having the genius of this program available to me is something I could never have come up with on my own. It's bigger than me, and I don't have to do it alone, and that is such a tremendous relief. And so the second step is a relief. I mean, for the longest time I thought of surrender in terms of like Custer at Little Bighorn. It means I'm going to be destroyed and defeated and humiliated and killed, right? That's what surrender meant to me. And now I think of surrender more as a little baby lying back in its mama's arms. I don't have to worry because I'm safe, because I'm held, because I'm loved, and I can trust that. I can lean into it. And that is so sweet. And so the third step of making a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand God is something that when I do it, I feel that relief, But every morning I have to do it again, because every morning I wake up with the same ego and I still think I got it and still think I'm smarter than everybody and still think I've got this all figured out. And so it's a daily wrestling match, And, many's the time when I am grudging and reluctant and resentful when I take the actions, but I take them anyway, My sort of mantra for a long time was "fuck you, okay." That was the way I worked my program, right? I did what I was told to do because I wanted what the other people had, and this is what they said to do to get it. And I did it, not trusting, not believing, not hoping, but I did it just to prove them wrong, right? But they were right. So that brought me to the fourth step when I listed all my character defects, made a feeling searching moral inventory of ourselves, right? I made a list of all my character defects, right? And my sponsor is a big book sponsor, and so we worked it through the way they do it in the big book, looking at fear, looking at resentment, looking at sex, looking at money, all the many character defects that I have. Resentment and self-pity are probably my biggest ones for sure. I am easy to take umbrage and to sort of look for somebody to blame when things aren't going my way. And this is a constant struggle with me, and self-pity, feeling like, oh, poor me, poor me. And nobody's got it worse than me. My pain is more real than yours. Wah, wah, wah. I'm such a brat, And one of the things that has really helped with that is being of service to others, right? Taking up service positions at the meeting. I sponsor. I make phone calls to try and help other people. And I try and be of service in outside of the program as well. And when I do that, I get out of myself, I get over myself, and I start feeling better, and I start experiencing gratitude. Um, so yeah, that was the fourth step for me. And then taking the fifth step, I was really scared because I really laid it all out on my fourth step. And the last time I did a fifth step, I got burned. But this time, God brought me to the correct sponsor because I was willing to work a spiritual program, because I was willing to really surrender. And I was received with love and forgiveness, just like God receives me with love and forgiveness. And that was such a tremendous relief. It was so healing. Um, and then the next step was became willing. What's the seventh step? That's the sixth step.
10 minutes left, Harry.
Thanks. Sixth step is made a list of our character defects and became willing to. I can't remember what it is, but it's basically sort of acknowledging my character defects and becoming willing to let them go. And that sounds easy, but I get a lot of benefit out of my character defects, right? Feels good to be resentful, right? Because that makes me right, makes me special. It feels good to be self-pitying because it lets me off the hook of having to take action. It feels good to be lazy. There are payoffs for all my character defects, and I had to face those and be willing to get rid of them. And then the next step was, asking God to relieve me of my character defects. I read the seventh step prayer every morning. I read the third step prayer, the seventh step prayer, and then a prayer from my faith tradition. Here's the seventh step prayer. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. And so it's all about getting over myself, right? And letting God remove the character defects. I can't remove my character defects. I can't white knuckle my way through it or will myself into it. I have to surrender to it. I was in a meeting earlier this morning and we did a guided meditation, and the meditation talked about how if you try to get something, you end up repelling it from you. But if you let it into your life, that it becomes omnipresent. It becomes everywhere. This is true of love. This is true of abstinence. I can't force my way into abstinence. I can only sort of surrender to God, and then God can give it to me freely. And then the eighth step, made a list of persons I had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. This was a long list, and I was on that list. And fortunately, my sponsor broke it down into two parts. First part was just making a list, right? Here's all the people I screwed over, right? Here's all the people I'd harmed. Here's all the things I've done where I need to make up for it. And then I became willing to make amends to them all one at a time, right? Some I was more willing than others, right? And it was a journey for me to become willing to do all of the amends, right? And then making the direct amends was really draining and expensive. I mean, there was a lot of I made thousands of dollars of financial amends. It cost a lot of money for me to make the amends that I made, and I ate a lot of crow, right? I made myself humble to people who were not perfect themselves, and so but focusing on what I did, and just sort of owning my shit was the essence of that work. And when I got through, it was as if I'd heaved an anvil off my chest. Such a relief. And then the 10th step made I can't remember the wording of it, but it's it's doing my daily inventory. Basically doing steps 4 through 9 every day. Where have my character defects popped up? Do I owe an amends? What have I done wrong? What have I done right? How, what am I grateful for this day? I do that at the end of every day. Step 11, prayer and meditation. I pray every morning and every evening and meditate. And then step 12 is giving back, being of service to others, sharing the program. And that, So I'm basically living in steps 10, 11, and 12. And in terms of the tools, I work pretty much all the tools every day. I go to a meeting every day. I sponsor. I have a sponsor. I talk to my sponsor once a week at this point. Um, and I talk to I have one sponsee. I have room for another one, but I only have one right now. And I talk to her 3 times a week. Um, I make a minimum of 2 phone calls a day. That's not just like leaving a message. I have to actually talk to another human being twice a day, you know, every single day. And boy, that was a tough pill to swallow. I did not want to do that, but that I think was the pivotal tool for me, because disease is a disease of isolation. And when I started making these phone
Five
calls,
minutes, Harry.
thank you. When I first started making these, first it was a chore. I didn't want to do it. I resented it. And I tried to get off the phone as quick as possible. And then I began to get to know people over time. Then they became my friends, and then they became family, you know. And now I've got this God squad of people who care about me, who I care about, who I can turn to with whatever's going on in my life. And I'm so grateful for that. I read literature every morning. I write in my journal every morning. Um, I have a plan of eating and a plan of action. In addition to my food plan, I exercise pretty much every day. Right now, it's mostly physical therapy for my recovery, but I consistently exercise every day. Service, I volunteer for service at my home meeting. And anonymity. I try and respect my anonymity and the anonymity of the people who I connect with in program. And so I try to work all the steps every single day. And I wish I had some sort of grand sort of wrap up here. I'm grateful. This program is a miracle. It has saved my life, and it continues to save my life every day. And it's a daily reprieve. I'm never going to be cured, but living in the solution is so wonderful, and I'm so grateful. And I know I could not do it for myself. And so for those of you who are newcomers, for those of you who are struggling, the miracle is possible. We just have to get out of our own ways. That's what it took for me, is to get out of my own way and let God do the work for me, because I can't do it myself. And with that, I will pass. Thank you.